You are listening to Conn and the Stick. We pretty much call it Season 2 with your host, Justin Connolly, the Conn, with the Stick. Bringing it back. It's like Season 2. I know we've been gone a while.
Yeah, we had winter break off from school, and, after the Super Bowl, not much to talk about, unless we're going to talk about AFL, but strictly NFL here. We'll stick to that football, the good football. And, wow, what an offseason it's been so far. Kind of feels like it's almost like basketball mid-season with the trade deadline, with the amount of action that's been going on these past couple of days.
It has been like it's like a fantasy draft. We've got guys moving left and right here. I mean, it's probably one of the craziest, if not the craziest, offseason. It's just we're seeing a bunch of different guys in new uniforms, and that's really what we want to get into. Is really the new league season has started. Free agency has been all over the place. We got new guys going where, so we're going to talk about our best fits, worst fits, who we thought won, who we thought lost. We'll go into that. We'll go into what could be the biggest guy in football right now, one of the most talked about guys, Kyler Murray, and whether or not the Cardinals should take him with the first pick. We're going to talk about the trades because one of the things is not just the signings, the trades. Antonio Brown finding a new home on the West Coast in Oakland. Well, going to Vegas in a year or two. And then Odell shocking the world. The Giants trading Odell to Cleveland.
That's crazy because just last year, the Giants signed Odell to that long contract. They signed him. He wasn't going anywhere. He was going to stay a Giant. One season later, I guess maybe they just had enough of his antics, or maybe the Giants just are going full tank mode now. But things aren't looking too good in New York right now. Well, for the Giants side, the Jets actually had a pretty good offseason, which we'll get to later. But what a crazy offseason. Usually big names don't swing too much in off seasons, I feel like. I feel like maybe there's one or two. But I feel like big name after big name is switching teams, and that's rare for the NFL.
Well, we see every year, the salary is raised and guys getting paid just this big money during free agency, and it's like an auction. One team's going to offer you this, one team's going to offer you that, and usually we see them go to the highest bidder. But we'll get right into that. Let's start with that. I mean, what best fits? What are some certain guys you like finding a new team?
Well, there's a lot of very interesting. We'll start right off. Odell, he has a great number 2 receiver with him. I wouldn't call Jarvis Landry a number 2 receiver, but they got 2 really great studs. Guys that both played together at LSU, so they already have that friendship, that bond together, which is good. And Baker Mayfield has no excuses now. He has all the weapons in the world around him now with Odell, Landry, Njoku. They got Chubb. Not so sure on the Kareem Hunt situation, how that's going to play out, who they took a risk on. Well, not a big risk, they didn't sign him too much, but who knows how he's going to do with his whatever suspension he may have in the works. But Odell, considering what he was on last year, where him and Barkley were it offensively, and a quarterback that was on the back end of his career, not having much. There's a young upstart quarterback now. He may not face as many doubles now because he has a great guy on the opposite side of him. So Odell's maybe primed for a huge season. And like I said, there's plenty of names you could think out there. Just the one that really popped off the top of my head. But just looking, even big move. The Giants actually lost a lot of guys too. They lost Landon Collins this year too. Safeties had a huge play in this offseason. I feel like every safety that had a deal had a mega deal. And Landon Collins, another one of those guys, signed a huge deal for the Redskins. It always feels good when you could take away one of your rival's team's stars. So good move for the Redskins. Quarterback situation still iffy there, but what do you think? What were some of the moves that you liked this offseason?
I'll tell you, there's a couple moves that I think that I'm going to focus really on my best fits and guys that I thought moved into a situation that I liked. First guy that pops off to my head is maybe not a guy that a lot of people are looking. How about Mark Ingram moving to go play with Lamar Jackson? He's been really a little bit overshadowed by by Alvin Kamara in New Orleans, to do everything back for them. And it's not like he wasn't getting reps. He was still contributing the way that he was. But now he gets a chance to really take over. And I think that the one year that he actually did have a chance to really take over as a lead back, he did. And that was the year before they drafted Kamara. And now he's going to be back into a power run scheme, downhill running. And I think that's a really good fit for the Baltimore Ravens. And, another guy that I think that's going to take over that role and is, how about Tyrann Mathieu to the Chiefs? They needed to fix the defense. They let up too many third and long conversions against the Patriots in that playoff game, in the AFC Championship game. And I think that that's a good way to start bolstering your secondary. I think that there's still definitely pieces that need to be fixed during the draft. They need to address the cornerback position. Even though they did gain Tyrann Mathieu, they lost their two edge rushers. Dee Ford was traded to the San Francisco 49ers, and they cut Justin Houston a long time. Their best edge rusher for the last 10 years, it seems like. But yeah, no, I really like the fact that they went out and got a guy like Tyrann Mathieu. And another fit that I actually like. How about the chance that Nick Foles has to go and be the lead guy? Is a couple weeks of the Jaguars are really the only person that want Foles. But to go out there and grab him, now we get to see the question marks start to go. Can Nick Foles succeed outside of Philly? Because we've seen this before. He goes to the Rams and didn't really pan out after this first stint with the Eagles. Then he comes back. Obviously, he leads them to a Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting to see where Nick Foles. But I actually like that fit. He's back with DeFilippo, who was his quarterback coach. Definitely a good fit for the Eagles to get a guy that they know. They just got to build around him.
Yeah, but talking about Nick Foles, going into the situation in Jaguars, he has a great running back right behind him in Fournette, but kind of worried a little about with the receivers there because they don't have that really big name there that they had a few years back, and I feel like his weapons with the Eagles are a little bit better. You had Jeffrey, you had Golden Tate at the end of the year, you had Zach Ertz. You had some guys you could really rely on. Jaguars, it's going to be a totally different game plan there. They're running the ball first. They're going to rely on their defense, look for low-scoring games. So the Jaguars aren't going to look for huge numbers out of Nick Foles, but I'm very curious to see how he could play with the limited receiving talent around him. But back also what you said with Tyrann Mathieu, huge signing for the Chiefs. They had one of the worst defenses in the league last year, and any little bit of help that defense could get will be good, especially when their offense is throwing up 35 points a game. Chiefs also just released Eric Berry. He's been through a lot through his career. Of course, he had the cancer, which derailed him a bit, and he's getting up there a little bit more in age. That stuff, it just comes wear and tear. But Mathieu, had a really good season last year with the Texans. Think he's really going to tear the walls down with KC. Just so many signings. You could look all across the board. We didn't even really talk about Antonio Brown yet. That's another huge move for the Raiders.
Yeah.
They trade away Cooper last season, and they come right back in the offseason and get who we think probably top 3 wide receiver right now in the NFL. So very curious how that connection between Carr and Brown works and how much chemistry they can really get before the season starts.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm going to go into really my two losers really of the free agency because I would put the Dolphins there, but because they haven't done anything. They let most of their team walk. They cut Danny Amendola. They let Jawan James go and sign with the Broncos, and they also let go of Cameron Wake, he's been the best defensive player they've had since Jason Taylor. But I mean, I would throw Rashad Jones has been fantastic for them. But I mean, I would say that they're a loser, but they have stuck to their guns, with the whole fact of they're not going to make these stupid moves that they continuously do every year to go 6-10. They would rather go 3-13 or 4-12 or even lower. I think they're going to be a 1-15 team next year. But they have a philosophy and they're sticking to it. They're not going to overpay for guys, which we've seen a lot, and even this year. and they're just going to build through the draft. They're going to build young talent. They're letting the older guys go, and we'll see where that happens. But even though I like the fit for Ingram, I'm like the Baltimore Ravens are a loser because you know what? Yeah, you gain Ingram and you gain Earl Thomas, but you lose Terrell Suggs, which really ends an era in Baltimore. You know, the last remaining guy of really that huge trio of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and them. An era ended when he went ahead and signed with the Cardinals. Not only that, yeah, you bring in Earl Thomas, you bring in Mark Ingram, but you lose Zadarius Smith. You lose your best linebacker in C.J. Mosley.
Eric Weddle.
Eric Weddle's gone. He went to go to Los Angeles. And, yeah, you replaced him with Earl Thomas, but who knows how good he'll come back after breaking his leg as devastatingly as he did. And you paid him a lot of money. So Baltimore Ravens, especially in a division where, you know, the Browns are gaining all this talent and, you know, the Bengals are just a few pieces away from being that contender because they had a really strong start to the season last year. I just think that
the injuries really got to them last year. With A.J. Green was hurt. Dalton was hurt at the end of the year. Even on defensive side, I think they had some injuries, but no, I completely agree with you. With the Ravens, I'm pretty sure they had the number one defense last year, scoring wise in the NFL, and they lost 4 of their key components to that defense, and that's no easy thing to replace. And like you said, Earl Thomas coming off a major injury. The offense last year, it was a little sporadic. Lamar Jackson had his games where he went off, but then he has games like he did in the postseason against the Chargers where he didn't do anything for three and a half quarters. So when you lose that staple of your team, and the Ravens have been known for defense for all these years, and you lose 4 guys of that caliber, that's tough. But also looking another loser, which this should be clear to anyone, the New York Giants literally traded away their entire team this offseason. They got rid of Odell. They got rid of Olivier Vernon. They lost Landon Collins, free agency. They didn't sign him back. That's probably 3 of their best 5 players just gone off the team. Like they still got Barkley, but they just lost a lot. The Giants have gone full tank mode for this upcoming season, and it seems like the GM said they're committed to Eli Manning sticking with the team this season. So who knows how that's going to go. But yeah, Giants should be a clear loser. They got some assets back. They got a first-round pick. They got a third round. They got Jabril Peppers, but what they gave up was just way too much this offseason.
My last loser is really the team that surprised me the most during this whole free agency buzz. And that was the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts went into this week with over $100 million in the cap. They had money to spend. And all I did was sign Pierre Desir back and grab Devin Funchess. And you know what? I think Devin Funchess can be a great number 2 receiver for T.Y. Hilton. But I think that they still need to add more. And I think that that changes really the where I think they go in the first round of the draft. But I think that they had money to spend, and I think if they made an offer for Le'Veon Bell, it would have been hard for him to refuse. To go out there and play under that O-line, and you know they're only that one step away from really getting over the hump. Because I think that really, if they get a great running back, I'm not saying that Marlon Mack hasn't played really well for them. I think he's had a really good game, but if you get that big name running back, and Andrew Luck continues, you fix the secondary a little bit. That's a playoff team. That's an AFC Championship team, in my opinion. But they just didn't do enough in free agency to make me concerned because they're right there, but they didn't do enough.
Oh, I completely agree. I think they're like one major playmaker away. Like they made the playoffs last year, and Andrew Luck had a phenomenal year from his 2-year layoff. And he has T.Y. Hilton, but you can't rely on T.Y. Hilton for every play. Like you need that other superstar on your offense to really carry the load. And having a running back like Bell could have really helped the Colts out. It could have helped Luck personally, individually. Like he doesn't have to throw the ball 50 times a game anymore. He can hand the ball off the Bell 25 times, slow the pace of the game, maybe keep Luck more healthy, more sustainable by utilizing the run game. But I knew the Colts, I'm pretty sure, had the most cap in the NFL this season, and they really didn't go out and spend their money, and they only have a certain window with their team, with Luck and with his injury history, and he's healthy, he's playing great right now. and they didn't take the chances I think they should have. Um, and that's a big mistake on their part.
Yeah, so now that that's pretty much what we got from free agency here. So we won't go too far away from that. We'll go and we'll talk about the two big trades that were made recently, and we'll start with Antonio Brown. Obviously, the whole charade of this whole offseason being about him and his dysfunction with Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin and the rest of the Steelers organization. And, since the season ended, this is what we knew that it was going to go into this direction. And then all of a sudden, a team like the Raiders, who just were clearly tanking, because, they get rid of Khalil Mack, they get rid of Amari Cooper. What would be really strange to me, and it's funny that as good as Amari Cooper is, you upgraded tremendously in a guy like Antonio Brown. I mean, I think this is a clear win for the Raiders, but I think that I don't blame really the Steelers for. I think they could have gotten more out of him, but Brown made that decision really hard for the Steelers to get value out of that because he wanted out, and he wanted out on his terms, which I think that the Steelers are absolutely going to get a huge compensatory pick for that. Because of the fact that, they probably could have gotten a lot more value for. Who knows what the trade to Buffalo would have been. But Antonio Brown said that that's not in the works. He doesn't want to go to Buffalo. They probably could have even gotten a first-round pick out of that. But here the Raiders sit with Antonio Brown, with 3 first-round picks. It just looks so good on their end.
Oh, no, it's a huge win for the Raiders. But just looking on the Steelers side, there was no physical way the Steelers were ever going to make out good on this situation. As soon as Brown said he wanted out, and once he was going on social media, dyed his mustache blonde, like he just went full crazy. I felt like it was scaring away a lot of teams, and a lot of teams we don't want to get involved with that. And it kind of got to the point where the Steelers probably didn't have many people that were asking for Brown. So with the whole Bills thing, I heard something with the Bills GM said, yeah, they were discussing, but nothing ever really got too close. Like, when the news came out that Thursday, they said the deal ended on, Tuesday or something like that. That, there was no major talks. But with the Raiders only giving up a third and a fifth, that fifth-round pick is almost nothing in the NFL. Yeah, you get your Tom Brady's here and there in the late rounds, but most of the time those picks don't really turn out to be all too much. But this is a huge steal for the Raiders. It is a great upgrade for this offense that really needed that playmaker once they lost Cooper. But like we said, Antonio Brown, I think he's had over 1,300 yards in 5 straight seasons. And that's just unbelievable. That shows that he's healthy, shows he's dependable. On the field, he's dependable. And it's something that Derek Carr could certainly use. And with all those picks, you said, I'm excited to see where the Raiders could go going forward. I had high hopes for him last year. Of course, that didn't pan out the way we thought. But maybe John Gruden could get this team turning around this upcoming season. So, curious to see.
I think that really his production doesn't lie so much in himself. I think his production lies in how John Gruden handles Derek Carr, because we've seen the talent that Derek Carr has. I think he's a franchise guy. I think he throws really well. But the thing is that him and John Gruden are just at a dysfunction that, you can't really figure it out right now. And, they say that they're fine and everything's good, but we see it on tape. We see it on Sundays, it just doesn't look good. So I think that Brown is only really, I'm not saying that Brown is only as good as his quarterback. I think that anybody that thinks that Big Ben made Antonio Brown's career is foolish. I think he's the best route runner in football. He makes some unbelievable plays. Yeah, Ben has to put the ball where it needs, but Ben's not there catching having Antonio Brown with the one-handed catches, or him making some ridiculous plays, making guys miss. I think that anybody that thinks that Big Ben made Antonio Brown is absolutely dead wrong. But a receiver is only as good as the guy that's throwing to him, because if he can't get him the ball, I think that the dysfunction between Carr and Gruden might cause dysfunction with Antonio Brown, because as good as he is, he's a guy that thrives on getting the ball. And, it almost looked like he started not trying really when Big Ben started going to Schuster a little bit more. And I think that Schuster ended up outperforming him, especially late in the season. So that's my opinion on it. I just think
Yeah,
that Brown isn't going to succeed unless this whole Derek Carr or John Gruden thing gets itself figured out.
I just think that whole thing with Brown and Big Ben, I think the relationship at that point was just so far gone that it just they couldn't go back. It just Big Ben just rather go Schuster's way just because I think he just had enough of Brown on and off the field. Whether it was he wasn't going hard, he was showing up late to meetings or that, but it just a situation Antonio Brown had to get out of. It just wasn't working between him and his quarterback. And you know what, Derek Carr, he had a great season 2 years ago with Crabtree, with Cooper. He's definitely has the talent, but like you said, John Gruden has his ways. Um, we saw it on the film. I'm not sure. Do they still have Marshawn Lynch?
The Raiders do, I
The
believe
Raiders
so.
still have Lynch. Okay, because I knew last year they tried to rely on that run game, but when you got a guy like Brown, you got to open up the offense. You got to let him do his thing, and you got to let your playmakers make some plays for you. So very curious where the Raiders go next season, and hopefully things with this draft will help them propel forward. And then we got another big trade to discuss.
We have another big trade. The Giants getting rid of Odell. Clearly, we get a tank almost a little bit feeling from that because you just don't get rid of your best offensive player. Wow, that is disputable because I think that Saquon Barkley is just the ultimate package, the ultimate football player. But he just, when you trade a guy like Odell, and you know what, if I would be lying if I said I didn't see this coming. Because I did, because I have a connection with the Giants that actually the front office was getting sick of him and all this drama that he causes, and that's not what they're about. And I think that this also comes from the fact that you also you you come from a prolific organization that values its guys that they have, and I think that at some point along the line they had to make a decision. Do you cater to Odell or do you cater to Eli Manning, who's been nothing but respectful? He has done what he has asked. He has won them 2 Super Bowls. I think they chose Eli over him, which, might not be the best for their long-term success talent-wise, but it's a decision that they wanted to make. They didn't want to cater to someone who is as, we'll say, outspoken as Odell.
Yeah, it certainly sends a message, and from a cultural standpoint of your team, it's showing the other players that it doesn't matter if you're just major star or if you're a middle guy, low guy. If they don't like the way you act, you're going to be out of here. And you know what? Literally taking who I think is the best player on their team, and they shipped him off just because they didn't like his antics. And you know what? That's good. It set a tone culturally, but from a talent standpoint, this one hurts a lot just because you got rid of Odell, and Vernon was involved in that trade too. But they get Peppers, who is a former first-round pick. He has a lot of talent. They get another first-round pick. They get a third-round pick as well. But it just hurts getting rid of probably one of their best wide receivers in team history. But like you said, some teams are willing to deal with the antics. And I guess for a team like the Browns, when you haven't had a winning season in God knows how long, I guess you're willing to swallow that little bit of trouble Odell may give you with his mouth just to get a few extra wins. And you know what? I applaud the Browns for it because they're putting their young quarterback in a better position to succeed. And there's more hype around the Browns. There was hype around them last year, and this year they got to be head over heels right now. And right now they're currently the third favorite to win the AFC, which is absolutely insane compared to where they were 2 years ago. So good job by the Browns front office to put this team where they are right now, and maybe we'll see a Browns winning season next year.
I don't hate this decision by the Giants to do this because you've gotten rid of. I think that they have a good position to build for the future of this organization with the picks that they were handed. Vernon didn't pan out to all the money that he was worth in the 3-4 because I'm a firm believer that you can't put a 4-3 D end at 3-4 backer. It's just it's you got to ask them to go in coverage. You're basically telling them they have to set the edge every single play. It just doesn't. I don't like how they do that. I think that there's certain guys that in the past couple of years that have made it work. I think that Jadeveon Clowney has made it work. I think that in his first year, Bradley Chubb made it work. But I think that Bradley Chubb, a lot of his success also comes from the fact that you have probably the best pass rusher in football on the opposite side of you. Everyone can make the debate of Khalil Mack or Von Miller. It's really close, and I can't pick one because I just think that they're just both just so good. But I don't hate this decision from the Giants. I think it's going to be very interesting to see where they go with those 2 first-round picks. I think that, they just signed Golden Tate, so we'll see if they actually go with a young receiver in the first round. I think they definitely need to address the DM position. I think that if you're going to take Dwayne Haskins, and you have any indication you think that this guy is going to succeed after Manning is gone, you go ahead and do it. But now I'm going to go to the Browns because I do think that now they just look scary with the offensive weapons. You have Baker Mayfield, you have Nick Chubb, you have Kareem Hunt, you have Odell, you have Jarvis, you have David Njoku. You have a pretty decent O-line. And even scarier is the defensive line. I think Larry Ogunjobi sits up that other defensive tackle position. They grab Sheldon Richardson, and now they have Vernon and Garrett on the other side. And just all of this just seems so crazy. And like you said, 2 years ago from a team that was 0-16, now in a position to go to the AFC Championship game. But, and this is where the but comes in, you have collected a bunch of people with very colorful, and I'll say colorful, personalities. This team is either going to succeed or they're going to self-implode. Because the only thing that's worse about the fact that you have so many colorful personalities, and I'm really, it's not so much Baker Mayfield. I think he can be to other guys, he can be kind of a jerk. We'll say we're trying to keep this as PG as we can. I feel like WWE, but Odell has got a way to him. Jarvis Landry has a way to him.
Sheldon Richardson
has a way to him. You are doing all of this with a rookie head coach, a guy that has no experience managing a game, and a rookie head coach. He's not going to know how to handle this. Because the thing is that Cleveland has never had really colorful personalities. They have got guys that have shown up and done what they were asked, and you never really heard anything really drastic out of Cleveland. But now you have Beckham, now you have Landry, now you have Baker Mayfield, now you have Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, the whole Kareem Hunt situation.
situation. You have a lot of drama makers in Cleveland. They are either going to be very successful or all those clashing personalities. Because what happens when things go bad? And Baker Mayfield is, he's still young. He's still going to make mistakes. What happens if he's throwing bad passes? Well, Odell's going to snap at him, and Jarvis Landry's going to defend him, and all of a sudden the quarterback's not going to throw to them because it seems like a guy that is going to take things personally. That's just how it comes off to me. I think he is a wonderful teammate. I think that one of the things I love the most about Baker Mayfield is watching the Senior Bowl, and he's with a bunch of guys that he never plays with, and he's jumping around and high-fiving guys, and he just seems like he gets along with with guys that aren't even his teammates. But what happens when Odell does what Odell does and he starts attacking his quarterback for making bad plays, and all of a sudden Jarvis Landry's obviously going to take Odell's side? What happens when this all self-implodes and you have a head coach with no experience? That's where my concern comes with Cleveland, because this isn't an organization. Because now you have Odell. You are going to get a lot of national media attention, especially with like you said, the Kareem Hunt situation. You have a lot of colorful personalities that all of this can just self-implode. And that's where my concern comes with the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, no. There's definitely plenty of colorful personalities, but I think Odell, he has to have a sigh of relief. Having from Eli Manning throwing him ducks all last year to a young arm throwing him rockets. Baker is young. He's going to make poor decisions, but Odell has to see this as an upgrade one way or another, just from a quarterback standpoint. Yeah, Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl champion, maybe Hall of Famer, I don't know, that's debatable. But he's just too old right now, and he couldn't reach the long ball throw anymore, which Odell used his blazing speed, his great route running. That was one of his strengths. Baker has the arm strength. He has the accuracy. This move should only help Odell, but you're 100% correct with the personalities. If a few things go wrong, maybe Odell clashes heads with one of his teammates. Things could blow up just like how they did in New York. It's just something, like you said, it's going to be hard with a rookie head coach, but as a team and as a quarterback, Baker Mayfield, you gotta pull the guys together. You gotta keep them all on track. Everyone have one goal, one plan. Everyone see the same vision, and they should be okay. But like you said, anything can happen in the NFL at any moment. But Brown certainly will be interesting next year, to say the least.
I think that Freddie Kitchens has he's got a gold mine, or he's got a mine full of TNT, and it's going to explode all over. So we'll move on to that. We'll move on to, I think, the most talked about guy in football right now, because I can't look on any football outlet without seeing Oklahoma and maybe future number one pick Kyler Murray. I mean, he's been all over. Does his size translate well? Is he actually going to succeed? Can he fill that role? And the guy that is at the head of this is Cliff Kingsbury, because he came in even before he said, before he was the Cardinals head coach, that he would love to have a guy like Kyler Murray, and if he had the first pick, he would take him. Well, he's got the first pick, and this might be the direction that the Cardinals head towards. What do you think?
It's crazy just because last year they drafted Rosen with the 7th overall pick, and are you really going to give up on a guy that quickly? Yeah, he didn't have a good last season last year. Dude had no talent around him. It's tough to really grade him by that. Yeah, he had fits. David Johnson just came off his first year back from ACL, but are you really going to give up on a guy that quickly? But if you have the opportunity to get the guy that you dreamed of, that you wanted, it's really tough to say no if you're that guy in that situation. But it'd be very curious to see if they do want to go Kyler Murray's route, where Rosen's going to end up. Because if they draft Murray, Rosen has to be gone. They have to trade him for something. Giants would be a good fit just because then they won't have to draft a Haskins in the first round if they go Rosen's way. There's plenty of other teams that could use a quarterback out there, but I don't know, just a guy that's 5'9", that may not even be 5'9", that may be even stretching. The guy's really small, guys.
They did measure him at a 5'10".
5'10"
at the combine.
That's smaller than Russell Wilson and Drew Brees, and that's tough. But if the guy has a talent, the guy can make the throws. I'm one of those guys. I don't think height is that big of a deal. If the guy can make the throws, if he can still see the field, if he can move around and make plays, and he showed you in college he could do it, it could translate to the NFL. Yeah, the guys are bigger and faster and stronger, but if the guy has the talent and you believe in him that much that this is your guy, then I think they should go with the pick. They got to get rid of Rosen for sure. Me personally, would I go with him first? I don't know. Nick Bosa is unbelievable of a talent at defensive end, but for a team, if they're getting rid of Rosen, they 100% need a quarterback. Go Murray, but I just find it tough to give up on a guy that you drafted just last season.
And we see that sometimes in coaching too, and I don't really agree with it either, because of the fact that, and we see that in coaching. A guy's been a coach for 1 year, and things didn't go well, and there could be other underlying things. Maybe he just wasn't doing things the right way, but we see it, and I think especially with a quarterback, especially somebody that you took, I believe it was the 10th overall pick, that they drafted Josh Rosen, because I think the Dolphins were at 11 and were about to take him until the Cardinals stepped in. I think they may have traded up. I'm not too sure. But the Cardinals took him, and I think you're right. I think that, he started developing a good relationship with Christian Kirk, who was also a rookie that they brought in with his second-round pick. But I don't like the fact that you're giving up on this guy, but here's the thing I will say about Kyler Murray. He is the most athletic quarterback that we have seen come out of the draft in, I think, ever. I think he runs better than Lamar Jackson. I think he throws just as well as maybe like Josh Allen. I mean, he throws a wicked ball. My concern is what Charlie Cashley said. I don't know if you had any chance to watch any of like the combine, but what he said at the combine, or at least right after, was the fact that he thought that he should not be the first pick, and he is the quote unquote worst first overall quarterback, number one overall quarterback we've seen in some time, because of the fact that he said this guy walked in, his interviews weren't good. He said he went into the chalk room, and it was the board or whatever, he working on his X's and O's, and he said he knew nothing. Like he doesn't have that football instinct. And the thing is that we see it at Oklahoma. He wasn't really a leader the way that Baker Mayfield was a leader. He wasn't a leader on his team the way that Pat Mahomes, because that's who he categorized. He talked about Patrick Mahomes. He talked about Baker Mayfield. Obviously, got to talk about Baker Mayfield because that's the guy that he succeeded at Oklahoma. But he said you never had any doubt that those guys were going to be leaders. But despite the size, despite the comparisons or whatever, like you never questioned their ability to go on the board and know their X's and O's. And that's what it said. You know what? Let's put him in an offense like that. Well, if he doesn't know what he's doing and he's not looking where the reads, that's not going to be good. I mean, I think that there's a couple of reasons for that. He's never had full-time Kyler Murray to be just a football player. He's played baseball for Oklahoma as well, and coming as former college athletes, it's hard to balance one sport, let alone two. But I think that if you give him some time, I mean, he's the most athletic quarterback. My concerns with him obviously go with the chalk, because you either know football or you don't. I mean, it's really hard to get guys to really
learn it throughout your career, because, like you said, you either know or you don't. But there was, I actually saw something similar to what you were saying. There was a lot of teams that were deterred at that moment because he wasn't making any commitments to them, because at that time he was like, he may still go play baseball. Like, of course, he's made his decision since then. He's committing to football, but a lot of teams were kind of worried about that, because they're like, if this guy doesn't have that much passion for the game to know he wants to play football, then that probably leads him to his X's and O's. Like, he's not as committed.
Right, and my concern too with him is, he was a first round pick in the MLB. He's going to be the first round. He is going to be the first person in sports history to get drafted first round in baseball and first round in football. It's just all signs are pointing towards the fact that the Cardinals are going to take this guy. My concern with him too is, he says he's committed to football. What happens if he starts not succeeding and all of a sudden he just hightails it and says, all right, I'm done playing for you guys. I'm going to go play for the Oakland A's, who have the rights to Kyler Murray. What happens when that happens? That's my whole concern with Kyler Murray, is the fact that, but I don't think that we see Rosen get traded until after this decision is made by the Cardinals. Because all of a sudden, I mean, you really don't know. Because the thing is with the NFL draft is that everything is smoke and mirrors, really, until it's never official, until Roger Goodell goes up to the podium and says, with the first pick, they take this guy. There's a lot of speculations. Everything is heard through the grapevine, but you never really have anything that's solidified. How long did we hear last year that Sam Darnold was going to go to the Browns? We heard it all offseason last year, and Roger Goodell goes up to the podium and says Baker Mayfield. Maybe days before we said the Browns were considering taking Mayfield, but we now thought for the most part they were going to go Darnold. And all of a sudden, that's the direction that they go. So I think it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors. I think they're trying to play a lot of people. But the thing is that if I'm the thing, I think the Cardinals affect the Giants draft more than the Giants realize. Because the thing is that if they think that they can get Josh Rosen from the Cardinals, then I think that's still a guy that could succeed in this league. I think he's still a guy that, I was complimenting his accuracy and his throws. I think that, his offensive line wasn't that good. His offensive line was just awful with the Cardinals. He didn't have a lot of receivers. His best receiver is like 35. Yeah. Fitzgerald is ancient.
Hall of Famer, but yeah, dude's up there in age.
Love Larry Fitzgerald, but he is really up there in age. So it's just a tough situation. And with David Johnson not living up to the to going back to his old ways. It was tough for the Cardinals to really get him going. So, but that decision with Kyler Murray and Josh Rosen isn't going to be made until, well, I would say Josh Rosen. That decision's not going to get made until after the draft. Or during it. I mean, we could see
It's
them.
very possible, yeah.
We could see them trade that 17th pick to grab Josh Rosen. We'll see the Cardinals with 2 first-round picks if need be. But yeah, no, I think that decision's not going to be made until the whole Rosen getting traded thing isn't going to be made until after the draft, because the Cardinals need to stretch this out as much as possible, and they need to figure out if they're going to take Kyler Murray. Does Kyler Murray have huge potential? Absolutely, because no one runs like him. I don't even think Russell Wilson runs like him. I think he runs better than Russell Wilson. I think he runs better than Lamar Jackson, and those are 2 of the best mobile quarterbacks in the league. Not to Cam Newton just runs differently than everyone else. I put Cam Newton in his own category of running quarterback.
He's basically a tight end running right at you.
Exactly. So I think that you can't even compare him to Cam Newton because it's just completely different. I mean, Kyler Murray just runs differently. But I think that you need to look at everything if I'm the Cardinals up until the draft, and then you decide if you want to take this guy, because I think he's got much more I think he has big play potential, but his commitment to football, his lack of knowledge of really being able to spend full time, and I don't think that he's going to succeed right away. I think it's going to take some time, but if they're willing to put that project and put all their marbles into Kyler Murray and not Josh Rosen, they need to figure that out until then, because if they trade Josh Rosen before this decision's made, then they're stuck. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they have to do it.
Thing I just thought about with Kyler Murray, if he's going to be running around as much, guy that's 5'10", getting hit by these big NFL linebackers, health is also going to be an issue with him. Like, look what's happened to Russell Wilson over the past few years. He's a smaller guy. He likes to scramble. He's had a few injuries in the last few seasons. He's tried to tone back the running as much. So in the NFL, when you got these big 240 linebackers landing on a guy that's 5'9", 5'10", only 190 pounds, it's going to take a lot on his body. So I'm very curious to see how he adapts to the NFL game. Like, a running quarterback's always going to have a huge impact with just that dual threat. But with a guy that's that small, you don't want to see him ending up like RG3, who's going to have all those major injuries and derail his career. Russell Wilson's had to change his game. Like you said, Cam Newton's a different breed. That dude's 250 pounds running at you. Lamar Jackson's even, I'm pretty sure he's a bigger guy. He's not Cam Newton big, but he has a bigger stature to him. But guy that's that small, that's going to be taking a beating from these D linemen and linebackers, very curious to see how his running game translates to the NFL. And I think that's something that the Cardinals should look into too, just from a draft perspective, because if they think this guy could be an injury prone just due to his size, like, you don't want to waste that number 1 pick on someone that you can't rely on all the time. And that goes, now it's an injury problem, and then with the health and with his commitment, there's a lot of questions. Dude has a great arm, has a lot of talent, Heisman winner, but like you said, it's one of those high risk, high reward type situations right now for the Cardinals.
Absolutely. So unless you have anything else to add?
I'm good on that situation. Just right now, this entire NFL offseason just been insane. I haven't heard this much news from an NFL standpoint in March and February in a long time. And you know what? It's good to hear football almost all year around. So it's a good start.
We are in full steam ahead. The new league year is coming into fruition. It is off to a red-hot start with all of these moves, all these players finding new teams, a couple guys signing back. I know you must have not been happy when Anthony Barr signed back with the Vikings.
Also, that's another thing. I feel like every year there's a coach, there's a player that goes back on a deal. Wasn't it just the guy from the Patriots, the offense coordinator? He was supposed to go to the Colts. Josh
McDaniels, yeah.
He was supposed to go to the Colts. He backs out. He stays with the Patriots. It feels like this happens every year or every other year. Guy says he's going to do something, and then he stays with his team. Yeah, the Anthony Barr thing hurt a lot as a Jets fan, but you know what? We got Mosley, got Bell. I'm all right with Crowder. Is it a huge receiver name? No, but still a guy that's capable and has done in the league for several years now. We're sitting at the third pick in the draft. Things are looking up.
Sun is shining bright in New York because it is definitely setting in South Beach as nothing is really going on there. But they're already looking past the 2019 season and really looking at 2020 with Tua Tagovailoa is definitely the biggest name in that draft. And, man, I'd love to see him in Iron Aqua. Hashtag tank for Tua. But that's going to be it for our first episode back. I know that we have been gone a while. You know, things just got a little bit hectic. Haven't had a lot of time to do this. I know with you and your job and me with my job and then looking for an actual full-time job, it just hasn't been easy for us. But we're going to – we may not upload every week like we have because it's not a weekly review or anything. Nick still has to do a little bit more. I know I'm a huge draft guy, and I know all these prospects like the back of my hand because I do so much research. We're going to get Nick a little bit more involved in that, and that's what we're going to come back to because now NFL free agency is really in the books, and so what we're trying to do now is now that we have moved really from free agency, and I know we talked about Kyler Murray, but now it's time to get into draft mode because the first wave of free agency is over. Teams are going to start looking at the draft, so we're going to look at prospects we like, prospects we think are going to be busts, dark horse guys that maybe could excel in the future, but now we're going to move right into draft time, and right before the draft, we're going to come out with a full first-round mock draft, which I love doing that. I did that last year, and I had so much fun doing it, so that'll do it. Nick Smith, The Stick, here. I'm Justin Connolly. We will see you on the next episode.